All right, let's dive right into what has to be one of the most grueling matches in tournament history, the 2019 Women's World Cup semifinal. We're talking about a game that absolutely pushed the physical and mental limits of every single player on that pitch. We are looking at a total masterclass in defensive resilience, where the Netherlands and Sweden went head-to-head in just a relentless battle of endurance. In this explainer, we're going to break down exactly how this historic, nail-biting showdown unfolded, spotlighting the tactics, the agonizing near misses, and the sheer willpower it takes to punch a ticket to a World Cup final.
So think about this for a second. How do you actually win a World Cup semifinal when the opposing defense just absolutely refuses to break? That's the question that defined this entire match. Both teams clashed in an unyielding stalemate, just desperately searching for a single tiny crack in the armor. When you have two squads meticulously structured to absorb pressure, every single touch, every corner kick, and every recovering run carries immense weight, right? The margin for error basically shrinks to zero. So how do you find a way through? Let's break down how this incredibly tense narrative played out.
Which brings us to Act 1, the 90-minute grind. We're starting off with the sheer, agonizing frustration of regular time, where world-class attackers essentially ran headfirst into an impenetrable wall of defenders. For the first hour and a half of this contest, it was a gritty, grinding affair. Offensive brilliance was continually shut down by even better defensive positioning and recovery. The crucial takeaway here is that despite a relentless barrage of top-tier attacking talent from both sides, every single run was neutralized, blocked, or saved. Just think about the firepower out there. On the Swedish side, you had Kosovare Asllani making these incredibly threatening runs and whipping in dangerous crosses, while Stina Blackstenius was constantly trying to squeeze shots in around the Dutch defenders. Sofia Jakobsen was finding space out on the flanks but just couldn't deliver that fatal blow. And then on the Dutch side, the prolific Vivian Miedema was forced to drop incredibly deep just to get a touch on the ball, purely because the Swedish midfield was completely suffocating her supply lines.
And that perfectly sets up this massive number right here, 90. 90 exhausting, nerve-wracking minutes without a single goal on the board. Nobody could find the back of the net. Every time a cross was driven in dangerously, a defender like Nilla Fischer or Magdalena Eriksson was right there, jumping, challenging, and clearing the danger away. The physical toll of running at full speed for an hour and a half, only to be denied over and over again, it's honestly unimaginable.
Just listen to how the commentators called it at the time. The tension in that stadium was literally suffocating because neither side was willing to give an inch. The broadcast completely captured this heavy atmosphere. You could feel the exhaustion setting in through the screen, but the stakes were just too high to fold. It became a pure, raw test of endurance.
Moving right along to Act 2, the goalkeeping masterclass.
Because, while the defenders were doing a stellar job, when those backlines were finally breached, the final line of defense proved to be basically superhuman. It's fascinating to contrast the two tournament-defining acrobatic saves that kept this game deadlocked. Sari van Veenendaal for the Netherlands and Hedvig Lindahl for Sweden were the unshakable foundations for their respective teams. They didn't just make saves. They made the kind of miraculous, fingertip interventions that literally alter the course of football history.
First up, picture this. The ball falls perfectly for Sweden's Nilla Fischer, and she hits it so incredibly well, a powerful, low-driving shot that looks totally destined for the back of the net. But Van Veenendaal, diving at full stretch and actually utilizing an injured hand, manages to get just her fingertips on it, pushing it right onto the post to deny the opening goal. It was an absolutely staggering save to keep the Dutch alive.
And then, literally on the other end of the pitch, we see the Swedish response. It started with a beautifully driven corner kick from Sherdaya Spitsi. Miedema, who is just a phenomenal header of the ball, connects powerfully. I mean, it's a rocket, but Hedvig Lindahl, perfectly positioned, reacts with lightning speed to somehow tip that ball straight onto the crossbar. The Dutch couldn't force it over the line on the rebound, resulting in a massive let-off for Sweden.
Both of these keepers were putting on a true masterclass. Two miraculous fingertip saves, two shots deflected onto the woodwork. It was the ultimate stalemate, meaning regular time ended with raw exhaustion and a 0-0 scoreline. Neither team deserved to be losing, and thanks to the brilliant women between the posts, neither team was.
Which pushes us straight into Act 3, the breaking point.
Heading into extra time, we completely shift gears from tactical discipline to sheer, desperate psychological endurance. When you hit that extra 30 minutes in a high-stakes tournament, tactics kind of begin to fade, and it becomes purely about who has the deepest reserves of mental strength. the players were forced to push through dead legs for 10 agonizing minutes of extra time before the ultimate climax arrived. Every sprint burned, every challenge felt twice as hard, and the game started opening up slightly, simply because the legs were just too heavy to close the gaps as quickly as they did in the first half.
Then finally, in the 100th minute, boom, the deadlock shatters. The game opens up. Jackie Groen finds a tiny sliver of space outside the box, sees her opportunity, and she strikes, putting the Netherlands in front. After an hour and 40 minutes of near misses and goalkeeping heroics, it takes a moment of pinpoint accuracy from outside the area to finally break the seal. Just listen to the exact words from the broadcast. The pure catharsis and Dutch delight in that moment was palpable as they finally put one foot in the final. That eruption of joy wasn't just about taking the lead. It was the explosive release of 100 minutes of suffocating pressure. But, as we all know in a World Cup semifinal, having one foot in the final definitely doesn't mean the game is over.
But we aren't done yet, bringing us to the final defensive stand.
Sweden wasn't done fighting, and the Netherlands had to dig incredibly deep to protect their super fragile one-goal margin. Trailing and facing elimination, Sweden threw caution to the wind. The final act of this match became a pure defensive survival mission for the Dutch. Sweden threw absolutely everything forward. Asselani was fighting relentlessly, winning late corners and fizzing balls across the face of the goal. At one terrifying moment for the Dutch, Jakobsen actually broke in behind the defense. It looked like the equalizer was inevitable, but Desiree van Linteran executed a superb, magnificent recovering challenge, taking absolutely no prisoners, to sweep the danger away and shut the door.
Miedema actually had a late chance to completely ice the game as the frantic final seconds ticked away. With Sweden pushing up, spaces opened at the back, and she found herself in the middle with a chance to put it completely out of reach. She cleverly tried to curl it into the far corner with the outside of her right boot, but it just went wide. So the tension, yeah, it remained at maximum capacity right up to the final second.
And then, finally, after Sari van Veenendaal safely clutched one last desperate cross, the whistle blows. The Netherlands officially knocked Sweden out and advanced to the 2019 FIFA Women's World Cup final. That grueling war of attrition was over. Jackie Groenen's extra-time heroics had been enough. The Swedish players collapsed in disappointment, having played a nearly flawless defensive game while the Dutch celebrated a monumentally exhausting, well-earned victory.
So, I want to leave you with this to ponder. After surviving an exhausting war of attrition like this one, didn't the Netherlands look like a team of undeniable destiny? I mean, when you can rely on a goalkeeper to make impossible saves, defenders to make tournament-saving tackles, and a midfielder to conjure a goal out of thin air in the 100th minute, you kind of have the exact DNA of a champion. It really makes you wonder, what happens when an immovable object finally realizes it can be an unstoppable force?